Welcome back. I'm your host, Mark Good, and we have an eye-opening and exciting day for your AI Salesforce journey. Get ready to be fired up and fire up your cerebral neural net, your brain, for AI demonstrations by our next expert speaker, Michael Leach, a titan of tech when it comes to the Salesforce AI frontier. His career journey from coding missile simulations for the US Army all the way to pioneering generative AI as the founder of Content Cloud is a testament to his innovative skills. Today, this Salesforce MVP and engineering powerhouse is ready to unravel the magic behind native Salesforce GPT apps. Let's peek into the future of AI automation and assistance for your Salesforce org by taking a look at what's already here today. Please join me in welcoming to the stage, Michael Leach.
Mark, thank you very much. And I hope everyone can take a minute to appreciate what Mark and all these people behind the scenes here at Elements are doing for this event. This is a pretty amazing production and what I hope will be the first of many. Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to have some fun doing some live demos with GPT, various applications. We're going to play with what are called AI completions. We're going to play with some chatbots, conversational AI. File GPT, which is the ability to chat with PDFs, documents, and images. And we've teed up some customer-facing chatbots here. And we're going to dig into some Salesforce flows, which is kind of the glue that makes all this GPT magic happen. I want to start with this quote. I think it kind of best summarizes the current state of AI and GPT. It's a Bill Gates quote from his book, The Road Ahead, which is, we always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. And we're at an interesting time. We're working with a technology that clearly will be around in 10 years. But from a Gartner hype cycle perspective, we're entering into what they would refer to as the peak of inflated expectations. So there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of potential with AI. And over the next 10 years or even 2 years, we're going to see some of the things we're talking about today actually will just kind of get buried into the stack. And like, for example, we may not even be talking about LLMs in a couple of years. They'll just be so built into the stack of AI, and we'll move on to the next thing, and they'll be an assumed part of the architecture. A few quick disclosures. The solution presented makes exclusive use of the OpenAI Enterprise AI. We've received some grants and credits from Microsoft Azure and OpenAI to develop these GPT solutions. So any forward-looking or roadmap statements are based in part on OpenAI's and Microsoft's ability to deliver some of these features. And the application presented, iDialogue, can be found on the App Exchange today. A quick background, iDialogue, we're basically focused on enabling one-to-one personalized interactions with customers. And personally, I've been in the ecosystem, as Mark mentioned, for several years. Launched iDialogue, or relaunched rather, in 2019, with a focus on what was then the most one-to-one personalized interaction with customers, which is PDF documents, quotes, landing pages, and rooms. So, but at that time, we're focused a lot on declarative personalization. And as machine learning and AI technologies came along, we've introduced them. So in 2020, remaining very document-centric, we added some document text extraction capabilities. E-signature, that kind of progressed into PII and semantic analysis of documents. And then last year, obviously, was the big kind of exploding year for GPT. And that was our aha moment. With our mission of one-to-one personalized interactions, GPT squarely is the technology that we were looking for and is going to deliver on this mission. So we added what we call GPT completions, file GPT, and flow actions last year. And this year we've added GPT AI assistants and chatbots. So a lot of people on this this webinar or viewing this video are probably Salesforce administrators, Salesforce developers, business analysts, and rightfully are trying to figure out, hey, where is this technology going? How does it impact our career? And if I were to sit down with a team today and set that team up for success over the next 5 years utilizing AI, the two job roles I would focus on most are business analyst and an AI flow developer. And I'm of the kind of principled opinion that AI will serve us over time. We're not going to serve AI. There's not going to be many job titles with AI in the job title, unless you're working at an infrastructure level, then absolutely. But within a business or enterprise application space, AI will become a skill set you itemize on your resume, just as you would itemize, you have competency with Excel and spreadsheets and word processors. And it's going to be a ubiquitous skill set that pretty much everyone will be exposed to. The role of a business analyst, I think, is going to be the most profound. And the reason for that is they are accustomed to writing business requirements today in a natural language. They sit down with a client or an end user, and through a series of interviews and experience, and sometimes the VP of sales will simply just write a very long email. Here's all the quote rules. Here's how I want sales run. Same thing with every line of business leader. And a business analyst tomorrow will just kind of shift the way they're writing. There'll be a preamble to what they're writing. They'll give the PDF document, requirements document, some context, act as an expert sales coach, act as a customer support engineer. And then they'll get into quote rules, discounting, service level agreements. And oftentimes if you work in CPQ and enterprise systems, you get into very arcane edge cases and rules, such as if a customer is in the state of Alaska, we cannot support a SLA bronze. It needs to be a higher tier because of shipping and handling. And then they kind of throw it over the fence and they ask a developer to do declarative configuration. But going forward with AI has built into it this ability to do NLU, or natural language understanding. This is the source code. You're looking at the future of writing source code for business systems. Now, I mentioned there's a collaboration with a flow developer. As the business analyst is writing these requirements, they put in placeholders that basically says actual customer account details go here, actual quote details inserted here, products, primary contact, etc. So this is part of this back and forth collaboration between a business analyst and a flow developer, is that there is both static predefined prompt data and there is dynamic prompt information that goes into the AI. Even more amazing with AI, we're at a state now where these documents can be up to about 12,000 words. And that's doubling about every 6 months. We're going to reach a point probably in 2024 with a 100K contacts window. You can literally write a few books describing your entire business, put it into an AI, and when you start chatting with it, it's going to reflect everything from the company culture, the company mission. In this case, I've inserted a sales methodology into the document. That's NEAT, an acronym, NEAT selling system. So this conditions or it primes the AI in all of its responses. When it makes determinations on what words to choose, it will align them based on this NEAT selling system. Okay, when we talk about GPT applications, it's a fairly new area, but we've seen an explosion of applications just in the last 12 to 18 months. GPT completions are the building blocks. They are fundamental actually to all GPT applications, no matter how complex. So we'll get into this pretty soon. I also highly recommend Mark Good's course at AI Force Training. These are the essential one input, one output type of completions. Then that progresses into GPT chaining, flow orchestration, dialogue, chat-based conversational AI applications, file applications. We'll talk a bit about Apex GPT, and if time allows, we'll get into semantic search and vector databases. And these GPT applications bring about a whole new stack. If you are familiar with Salesforce development, you're probably familiar with MVC. It's an acronym for Model View Controller. And there are different variations on that model, but model being the database, Salesforce database, you have controller, which is a lot of middleware, Apex, triggers, workflow rules that basically move transition data between one state into a view state, and views being historically Visualforce, today being Lightning Web Components, page layouts. So the new stack in GPT, if you look towards the bottom, these language models have been trained on a variety of text sources. They've crawled the web, Wikipedia, various sources, and they understand at a symbolic level, language is a human invented construct. And so it makes sense that that's one of the first areas that AI is really good at. It understands any language, code, anything symbolic. And above that, we have this core stack of transformers. GPT is a transformer. I recommend seeing yesterday's videos. Vernon, Mark did a great job covering LLMs and GPTs. Then we start building on the stack, which is why I say LLMs are going to start disappearing, because as we start building dependencies on these LLMs, and in fact, GPT and 4 and 5 are actually multiple LLMs. They're not just one. But then we get into content management and documents, org knowledge, embeddings, a new technology called a vector database. And the orchestration layer above that, which we'll play with today, event chaining, orchestration, plugins, prompt engineering. This all occurs at the orchestration level. And if all you're doing is building background record trigger type of GPT applications, the orchestration layer is sufficient. When we get into conversational AI, we have a dialogue layer, which is a new concept within the stack, which is responsible for conversation history, memory management, understanding the intent of each user's interaction, taking actions based on that intent, and brokering semantic search. And that gets delivered through common user experience channels, mobile, desktop, email, SMS. And going forward in VR and AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, those technologies, fortunately, are evolving at the ground floor of GPT. And we're going to see massive adoption in those spaces of dialogue-based applications. So I've learned from giving this presentation enough times to talk about security earlier rather than later. Security, rightfully, people have a lot of questions about security. There's a lot of outdated information. There's some misinformation. As I mentioned, we're kind of in this hype cycle, and to be a professional in the AI space, you need to have some filters around security. And yes, absolutely, security is very important. What a lot of people don't realize is they actually have a security problem today. What Salesforce users are doing today is they're simply cut and pasting all the information in a page layout. They're going over to ChatGPT and they're basically saying, like, write an intro email, and pasting in some lead data, and they get back instantaneously an email. And they may be collecting some prompts. They may be accumulating their own kind of interactions with ChatGPT, but they can do the same thing with accounts. For example, we can go to an account page. copy that, go into ChatGPT, and you could say, write a summary for the following account in Hindi, let's say. And ChatGPT will instantly come back with translations, categorizations, semantic analysis. So people are getting pretty proficient today just using ChatGPT. So why is this a security problem? Well, the main issue we have with ChatGPT being a consumer-based product is that it is within its end user license agreement, they reserve the right to retrain their language models based on any saved chats. So if a consumer, ChatGPT cut and paste some lead information into ChatGPT, there's a possibility. Now, if they're not saving their chats, that's really not an issue. But there's a possibility that that vector can come through into the LLM. On the business side of it, it's a firewalled experience. The system prompts absolutely are not stored. The data is not reused in training. And I think this is where a lot of the misinformation comes. Anytime you mention OpenAI, people immediately think of ChatGPT, when in fact, there's this whole business, very successful business that's growing on the business side using the API. So Microsoft, if you dig deeper into the security, you'll learn that a lot of the OpenAI infrastructure is hosted on Microsoft Azure. Microsoft is actively over communicating, making it very clear to everyone that, hey, for business applications, we've done all the hardening and the security that we can to make this a viable enterprise application. OpenAI, trust.openai, I think is a great source. I recommend going out to trust.openai. If you have any questions about GDPR, SOC 2, compliance, you can get an idea of companies already using it. You can enter into an agreement with OpenAI, which is a DPA data agreement with them. And, careers in AI are pretty lucrative. There's a lot of, throughout the interview process, there's a lot that gets covered in security. And I recommend, in preparing for any sort of GPT or AI-based career, going out to Trust API and understanding the facts, understanding, through a business enterprise license API context, how security works. So we've entered into a data processing agreement with OpenAI that is available. It's out here on our GitHub open source. We have certain obligations as a steward of data when we're integrated with OpenAI. Using our own file GPT, I can pre-can some queries here. So this is a fairly long legal document, thousands of words. In fact, most of the traction and uptake on GPT that we're seeing are in legal professionals most recently, particularly when you have large amounts of legal documents and you want to get a sense of what's within the document. And we'll wait on the GPT here. Okay, there we go. So Pacific Apps, that's our company, has the following obligations in this agreement. So I've condensed a multi-thousand word document down into a few bullet points, and that's with a fairly generic prompt. But more importantly, the spirit of the document here is we are stewards of the data. We deal with a lot of files within the Salesforce ecosystem, metadata. The internet is inherently not, even after decades, the internet is still not a very secure place. There's a lot of attachments. There's things that get kind of passed around. And we're using GPT internally on metadata. So for example, if we were to walk up to a security.settings file, if you work within the Salesforce ecosystem and you're looking at a variety of orgs on a daily or weekly basis, and you want to understand the org shape. If you're walking up just kind of cold into an environment, then you might, spend a few billable hours clicking around. What are the password policies? Is MFA configured? What you can do with GPT is simply ask the metadata. Recommend some changes to the security file so I can very quickly at a high level get an abstract idea of this org's configuration just through the metadata. Okay, so that's security. Again, I didn't want to gloss past it. It's a very important topic. Hopefully you've gleaned some information from it, and you'll have the tools and the links and access to the Trust Portal for more information. Okay, so let's play with the building blocks, and if the API and live data is going to allow us, let's start with the essentials here. So a GPT completion is one input and one output. So the T in GPT is transformer. And this is what it's very good. It's been pre-trained to basically take one input and it goes through a transformation and it provides one output. So if we provide an input of write a poem about dogs, we're going to get back, sure thing, here's a poem about dogs. In a business context, there's a number of use cases for this. Let's try a language translation. So this is a simple, we'll translate hello world to Spanish. And let's try translating hello world to Hindi. And let's translate the Hindi to, I don't know, let's go with another symbolic extended ASCII kanji. So normally this telephone wire translation is a very dangerous demo to do. If we were to translate this back to English, let's see what we get. Okay, so we've gone full circle through 3 or 4 languages, and we come back to hello world. It's just an amazing, this ability for GPT to and the LLMs to do this symbolic transformation. And language translation is just one of them. We can do a variety of completions, which we'll get into. Okay, so pretty soon, the novelty of just doing one input, one output kind of wears off. When you get into real business applications, there's a need for orchestration. And I want to say around the time GP2 or 3 emerged, an open source project called LangChain also emerged that facilitated a lot of this orchestration need. We had this need ourselves, being document centric. We need to extract text. We need to do chunking, embedding, vectorization. And so these processes are actually multi-step processes. There's another great open source solution out there. The founders have a great background in Salesforce, GripTape. And we're going to see a variety of orchestration and chaining type platforms emerge above, on top of the LLMs and AI, Microsoft Flow. When we were looking at a solution, we considered all these, looked at open source. We looked at Salesforce. We said, hey, we're a native document app. Salesforce has Flow. Let's make this work. So we built all of our hooks into it. So an example of, go ahead and find the tabs here. So this would be an orchestrated flow. Each of these blue boxes are a GPT completion. There's one input and there's one output. And this particular flow is triggered when a case is updated. And we're simply summarizing the case. We have an input. The system prompt contains everything about the case. We have a user message saying, summarize this case in 100 words, be concise. And then on the output, we're manually assigning the output to a summary response. Then we're going through a series of transformations. We take that output, the summary, and we translate it to any language, in this case, Spanish. So the input of the language transformer is we give the bot some context. You are a language transformer translating the following text. Here's the text, and then we grab the output. Then we get into, we're going to grab a PDF. And this is an FAQ, frequently asked questions. And this is one of the most amazing assets that you probably already have in your organization today. It is a form of what is called few-shot prompting. Prompt engineers will often resort to few-shot prompts, which is you give the AI or the chatbot a series of questions and answers, and you're conditioning and grounding that chatbot on how you would like the bot to respond based on particular questions. So what we're going to do in this flow is we're going to grab an FAQ, and we're going to provide this document as an input along with the case information. And we're going to say, based on these two pieces of information, the FAQ and the customer's question, provide a suggested resolution. And then on an output, we're getting an AI suggested resolution. And finally, we're getting into this final completion is taking all of the comments and it's determining, it's doing some sentiment analysis. Is the customer having a positive experience, neutral, or negative? And the great thing about Flow Builder is on the right-hand side, you can actually debug and troubleshoot these along the way. And it's literally calling out, these are the inputs, these are the outputs. So we have the input of the case, and we get a summary. We go to the next transformer, we have an input in English, we do an output in Espanol. Then we go on to the FAQ based, and you notice we do not have to dump the FAQ text in line. We just give it a reference to content version ID and some additional information for grounding. Here's the case. And on the output, we're getting the best answer for the Gen What generator is using this particular oil. And we see above the customer's question was, I believe it was, what oil type is recommended. Finally, sentiment analysis, we get into completion action. The input looks like the customer in an email said at one point, hey, this is frustrating. I'm not sure if the instructions on page 2 refer to the oil from my generator. And we've asked GPT, classify this customer sentiment as positive, neutral, or negative. And it's correctly come back with, hey, this customer might be having a negative experience. So before anyone has even looked at the case, before this has been forwarded to a queue or a sales rep, if we look at this case, we've added these 4 data points. So the last step in this flow is we took each one of those output variables and we updated them to case fields. And the support rep immediately sees, here's the summary, here's a translation, here's a suggested resolution, and here's sentiment analysis. So they can engage with the customer and help resolve the case. By extension, we could also create what's called a room. We're getting into kind of a portal experience, and we can send an email with a link to the room for the customer. And this is a separate flow. This particular bot has been grounded in the customer's past purchase history. It knows the products, it knows the entitlements, it knows the current issue, it knows past issues. So the bot here is saying, hey, does this resolve your issue? Say yes. This looks good. Please close the case. Or you could continue to engage with the bot. You could say, one more thing. Which gasoline should I use? It's going back to the FAQ. There's a particular question and answer related to the gasoline for that particular generator. It's looked it up and come back in just a couple seconds with the answer. So This is a case where end to end, the customer has submitted a case, we've run a trigger in the background. We believe we have a high probability of a suggested resolution, sending a link to a room or a portal to the customer, and off they go. They can self-diagnose, troubleshoot, and this is 24/7. These bots are always on. And as products change, the only retraining we really need to do in this model is you might need to occasionally upload a new FAQ, but the flow will continue to work as is. Okay, so we talked about chat applications. Let's play with a sales bot for a minute. So at the very top of this, I talked about how the business analyst job description was going to change. They could write complex rules, approval rules, validation rules using natural language. And by adding an AI assistant to, say, an opportunity page layout, a sales rep has the luxury of chatting with essentially all the knowledge of VP of sales, VP of support, marketing. All this information has been trained in PDFs and documents, and also dynamically, this particular chatbot knows the context of the quote. And similar, we have a quote room. We have a different chatbot. When we ultimately send a link to the customer, this bot knows about the quote and is helping them with adding on products. So this could be, looks good, may need help with installation, what products are available. And their prices. So we've given this bot some upsell, cross-sell capabilities. It knows the price book. It knows the bundling and dependencies. If this customer wants to add an installation product. Internally for the sales rep, the sales rep can engage with the bot. I can go into what are called dialogues, which is a transcript of the logs in the background. And as a GPT developer, you'll want to periodically review these transcripts and make sure they're aligned with the rules you've established. So here we can see the natural language static text that we had in the original prompt. But we can also see the dynamic information is getting inserted here, details of the customer account, current quote details, current products within the quote. So all of this actually is injected into the bot's context before there's even the first chat. For upsell and cross-sell, we have price book opportunities that's been seeded with the context. And the methodology. So we're using this NEAT, neat selling system. So the methodology is built into it. And then we get into an actual question. Does this quote require an approval? And then it's leveraging all of this preamble and knowledge basically to say, yes, this quote requires an approval. And you can mask this data. Again, with flows, you have full control over what you're dynamically injecting into the system prompt. It could be just anonymized data. We're working on a healthcare bot that's patient-facing, completely anonymized. Nothing in the GPT system prompt has anything about the patient. So you have full control. This is why it's essentially prompt engineering, because you do have to have a grasp of some things like conditional branching, iterators, and loops, but it is also for just compliance. If a customer comes back and said, hey, I had a interesting experience with your bot, or there's a question about maybe what was transpired within a self-service experience, you can lean back on these dialogues for transcripts. So again, I think we've kind of reached the pinnacle of CRM. When customer relationship management was founded, it was about the customer relationship, and Salesforce, very leading edge, going to the cloud. Customers are on the internet, they're on the cloud. It was very kind of a natural marriage for the two. And everything we've been doing for the last 20 plus years in CRM is driving towards the most personalized one-to-one experience for a customer. And there's not been anything in 20 years that's remotely close to what has been delivered today, what is available today with GPT and AI. I mean, we are absolutely going to completely transform CRM with these capabilities. So I talked a bit about prompt engineering. Bring up the right tab here for context, I hope. Yeah, I love Flow Builder and Salesforce because it is engineering. You do have the benefit of, we go back into editing the flow here. So basically a lot of this starts with a, let me see, let me go ahead and open the quote system prompt. We're doing it live, bear with me, apologize for this. Here we go. Okay, so why is this prompt engineering? So we're starting with a system prompt template, and the business analyst has provided some high-level natural language representation of how this bot should behave, act as a sales coach. And the flow developer has actually created a series of variables for quote rules, discount rules, SLA products, installation products, approval rules. And this can go into GitHub. The great thing about flows is actually they are self-versioned within an org. I think it's very, very important to have rollback capabilities, version control and diff with prompt. And for the reason that one word can make a substantial difference in the behavior of a GPT bot, and even masking data. There are going to be very subtle things that have profound impacts. And so the engineering element here, you can actually delegate, let's say to marketing is going to define the pricing rules. The VP of sales is going to manage the discount rules. So each one of these are snippets of text that are managed as templates. And the flow developer actually decides how and where to inject this information into the ultimate final system prompt. So we have methodology, we have quote rules, we have discount rules, and we're grabbing some records for context. So we're getting an opportunity record, we're getting an account, we're getting the products. If there's a primary contact defined, we're getting that information. So in the end, we ultimately end up with a system prompt that is it's essentially a document merge. It's the same methodology or approach you would use if you're developing quote templates. You have a mixture of static text interjected with dynamic text, except we're moving this to more conditional branching and engineering concepts. And I recommend starting at the ground floor. There's a lot of DevOps practices, use of version control, GitHub, get your flows moving from a sandbox to production. Treat this as you would any other responsible DevOps process. Apex GPT. Okay. I love Apex. A lot of profound change going on with coding. To be honest, probably 70% of the code we're doing internally is running through a GPT-4 prompt template. And it's completely transformed the way we're writing code with GPT. As a Salesforce Apex developer, everything in our managed package, the completions, the PDF text extraction, all those interactions, they are published as global actions. So you can create a request, an AI completion request. You can ground that with some sort of system message. Act as a language translator, convert the following to, let's do Spanish. The user message is hello world. We're going to invoke the completion action. We're going to get back a response and dump that out to system debug. So if I execute that in my log over here in real time, I should see hello world and Hola Mundo for the Spanish translation. So absolutely, Apex, I think is going to have a profound impact, largely in batch and high volume use cases. So I talked about vector databases and embedding. There's this capability to for AI chatbots to have a view into your data through a vector database and to do semantic search. And that necessarily requires some very high volume batches to create embeddings for your data. So that's something I could talk a whole hour or two just on that, but Apex really is the only technology that can do that at scale. So with GPT and AI, we're going to see some new methodologies emerge. I personally use the extreme programming XP methodology, authored by my friend Kent Beck and Ward Cunningham, but a variety of methodologies, existing methodologies will work fine. The important thing to emphasize with GPT is it's very iterative and incremental. It's not very conducive to waterfall. You don't just deploy AI and walk away. It's the type of thing where you start small, you start simple with maybe one completion. It could be summarizing a case. It could be summarizing or translating an account. You build it and deploy it. You interact with it in a chat capacity. Typically, that's the highest feedback loop, is if you can interact with your prompts in a chat conversational environment. And then come back in a few days or weeks, but be very rigorous in coming back and reviewing the transcripts and gauging the chatbot for alignment. You also want to take a look at how what your internal Salesforce users are periodically typing all the time. Most users are conditioned to modern user interfaces. They would like to just kind of one click, and they may not want to type out a lot of prompts. So the GPT UI kind of introduces a new UI metaphor, which is either preceding with a suggested prompt. So in the course of doing your agile methodology review in step 4, if you notice that a sales rep is always typing, translate this to this language, or what additional products are required, the feedback from that should be, go ahead and create a suggested prompt to give them some one-click capabilities. And similarly, users can create their own by clicking on a star icon. They can actually save their own prompts as they go. And this is going to scale in a variety of ways: prompt databases, auto-suggested prompts. We're going to reinvent UIs completely based upon, we're going to honestly be using AI in order to manage AI to figure out what are the most relevant prompts for a particular interaction. And where possible in step 5, you want to promote a lot of your conversational AI interactions to flow-based interactions in the background, record triggers. Try to automate as much of this as possible. I realize, building these are fun. I realize a lot of people aren't going to want to necessarily build. We are working on an app store. I think the logical evolution of AI in GPT is an app store of pre-built apps, and we're about to deploy an AI gallery that has a combination of the PDF document templates, room templates, AI assistants. But I can see this if you are a methodologist, say in the MEDIC sales methodology, or you come into sales orgs and you do sales coaching. When you walk away, kind of entropy sets in. People will slowly forget what you taught them and how to sell. If you leave behind an AI assistant with your methodology, then every time someone is within an opportunity, they say, "Oh, yeah, what is it I should be doing here?" And the AI can preemptively kind of coach people along. So I think App Store is a very logical conclusion. We've seen on the consumer side, characters.ai, for example, unicorn $1 billion valuation with almost no revenue, but people love engaging with characters. It's also worth a quick comment here. Will there be one big monolithic AI for an organization? There's sci-fi HAL 9000 use cases, or we're going to have a plurality of many smaller bots and AIs. So I think it'll be a combination of both over time. Honestly, I think going back to the original Bill Gates comment, what are we underestimating in 10 years? I think someone born in 10 years on day one will have their own personal chatbot, and for the entirety of their life, the memory of that bot will understand every email, every interaction. So, that would be more of a monolithic use case. But in business, for the time being, I think what we're trying to do for AI is what Salesforce do with custom tabs and custom apps. It's not about just one. It's many different focused chatbots for each business function. Okay, if you made it this far, thank you very much. We're at about the 47-minute mark. Some next steps. Highly recommend Mark Good's course at AI Force Training. He goes into much deeper training on the support case flow. And he also has very good guidance on how to utilize ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT daily, not necessarily in the cut and paste security context, but I recommend going to Mark's training on that. Our website, iDialogue.app. This is a managed package you can install today. We provide some training, building these custom bots, training your team, and some pro services. So we also have a free AI dev org where that's available today if you want to email me or info@iDialogue.app. One of the 2-user Salesforce dev orgs. That's thanks to a grant from Microsoft. OpenAI credits have been provided. We're also going to work on a bring your own OpenAI key model so that you can actually manage your own token utilization. So I want to thank you very much for your time and for everything that Mark and Elements and our hosts have done here behind the scenes. It's been my pleasure to present. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. Yes, that's right. All of your questions will be forwarded on to Mike, and we will be able to get some answers from him to you on those probably early next week. Wow, what an incredible session. I think we can all agree that that was an incredible session packed with so much actionable information. I hope you saw this live. The chats were on fire with additional details. I think what Mike has done with infusing AI into the org is extraordinary. Apps like this set the scene for what's possible with AI for years to come, as we are just getting started. All right, up next, we'll transition to hear from another generative AI pioneer and find out what happens when you inject AI into org management tools. Join us in the next session at the hour, right at the hour, and head to the lobby and click join a few minutes before the session starts, and I will see you there.